The sound of crumpled wrapping paper cracked under my bag as my son's wife kicked it aside. Still, I said nothing. Just adjusted the bow on the box I had labeled carefully for her. As the paper strained under her heel, it whispered what I already knew. She thought I didn't matter. While she laughed across the room, I watched her. All polished nails and practiced charm. The same torn paper now revealed her real gift, an envelope with the name on our house. That's when I met her eyes and said, "You'll need a new address by January." All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Christmas Eve. The Henderson home buzzes with noise, the low hum of conversation, the clatter of dishes, the occasional burst of laughter punctuated by the sharp click of heels on the hardwood. It's warm inside, too warm for December, and the scent of garlic, thyme, and baked ham clings to the air, making everything feel heavier. The usual holiday cheer, however, is muted this year, overcast, like the thick layer of snow outside that has yet to break. Linda arrives early, her steps slow as she approaches the front door. The world outside is white, soft, and silent, but inside, there's a chaotic kind of energy, a kind that has never felt entirely comfortable for Linda. She reaches for the handle, the cold metal sending a slight tremor through her fingers, and then enters, taking a moment to adjust her scarf. Her small overnight bag hangs from her shoulder, the same one Natalie had kicked aside last year. A quiet little symbol of the tension she always feels when entering this house. She hears the laughter from the living room before she even enters the hallway. Her son, Mark, somewhere in the background, trying to fit in, trying to be present but always half absent. His wife, Natalie, louder than ever, commanding the space around her. The kind of woman who fills a room, but leaves no room for anyone else. It's been like this for years, but tonight, Linda can almost feel the weight of her own breath pressing against her chest. Linda steps into the hallway, the bag in her hand lightly shifting as she lowers it to the ground, moving toward the living room with the wrapped pie in her other hand. She could feel the shift in the air as soon as she steps past the doorframe. Natalie is at the front, directing the chaos. "Can we keep things tidy this year?" Her voice is clipped, sharp. She's arranging the couch pillows with such force. It's as though she's trying to smooth over every imperfection, her face a perfect mask of control. Linda bends down, just a little, to place her bag by the door. The simple motion, almost meditative compared to the madness around her. That's when Natalie's foot nudges her bag aside, sending it a few inches further down the hall. Linda doesn't flinch, but something inside of her tightens. "Can we keep things tidy this year?" Natalie repeats, not looking up, but her words punctuating the air like a demand more than a request. Mark chuckles, his laughter coming out strained, too quick to be genuine. It's his usual way of diffusing, a nervous habit that doesn't cover the silence between them. His eyes meet Linda's, but only briefly, before darting away. Aaron, standing off to the side, watches the exchange, but says nothing. Linda notices her granddaughter standing just a bit too still, her arms crossed in that defensive way teenagers have when they know they're too old to fully belong, but not old enough to change anything. Linda, however, says nothing. The soft smile on her face remains, a practiced, polite expression, the kind that hides everything. She adjusts her cardigan, her fingers brushing the fabric as though the movement can somehow steady her. A gentle ping on her phone pulls her attention for just a moment. She glances down at the message. "Need me to start the clock?" It's from June, her best friend. The only person who sees what Linda is really holding on to. She replies with a single word. "Yes." The subtle weight of the message hangs in the air between Linda and her family, unspoken, but felt by her. June is watching the countdown, watching Linda's patience wear thin. "Linda, you okay?" Mark's voice is too high now, his eyes flicking between the bag on the floor and the pie in her hands. Linda holds his gaze for just a moment, but it's enough to make him back away. His eyes drop to the floor as he shifts on his feet. Uncomfortable, not knowing how to react. He has never really understood her. Either of them, really. Erin doesn't say anything, though Linda can feel the pull of her granddaughter's gaze. Erin is watching her. It's strange, that quiet, searching look. Erin, who's always been caught between loyalty to her mother and an unspoken loyalty to Linda. The room feels smaller now, too small, and the air, once thick with the scent of dinner, feels like it's stifling her. Linda glances at the tree in the corner, the decorations brightly flashing in their own kind of eager cheerfulness. The tree has always been part of the spectacle. But this year it feels like a facade, masking everything that's rotting underneath. She clears her throat softly, the sound of her own voice foreign to her in the thick silence. "I'll go set this in the kitchen." She walks past Natalie, who doesn't look up from the couch cushions she's fluffing. Linda's steps are deliberate, but her mind is somewhere else, calculating, steady. Her smile remains, but it feels thinner now. Mark watches her go, his lips pressing together in that way he always does when he's about to say something but never does. His hesitation, so painfully familiar, lingers in the air like an afterthought. Just before Linda crosses the threshold into the kitchen, she stops. She doesn't turn, but she doesn't need to. The quiet weight of everything, of years spent here, of expectations unmet, hangs in the air. And then she hears it. Erin, softly, almost imperceptibly, speaking to her under her breath. "You deserve better than this, Grandma." Linda's heart tightens, but she doesn't turn around. Instead, she walks into the kitchen, the noise of the house muffling behind her. She places the pie on the counter, her hands steady. Her fingers brush the edge of the ceramic dish. And then, just for a moment, she closes her eyes. The clock, somewhere off in the distance, ticks louder now. The house is quieter now. The holiday noise has dulled, replaced by a stillness that feels almost unnatural. Linda sits at the small kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea, the steam rising in delicate curls. She stares out the window at the falling snow, watching as each flake dances to the ground, unaware of the storm stirring inside her. The kettle is still warm from dinner, its echoing hum fading into the background. Outside, the streetlights flicker like distant stars, familiar but cold, and just far enough to feel out of reach. 2 years ago, it had been different. Linda stands in the memory as if she's walking back into a dream. The warmth of the room at that time had been different, brighter, hopeful in a way that Christmas mornings are supposed to feel. She had been there at the kitchen counter, cutting through wrapping paper, the check from the bank in her hand. She had finished paying off the mortgage, something she had promised herself she would do, and with that final payment, the house would officially be hers. Completely. All of it. And with it, a new chapter. One that would finally let her take back control. But control was never as simple as she thought. Mark had been with her, standing beside her at that counter. His enthusiasm had been wrapped in a kind of passive certainty. He had nodded as she signed the papers, murmuring how proud he was of her. And Natalie, with her sharp eyes, had been more interested in what it meant for them, for her and Mark, than for Linda herself. She had stood there, arms crossed, nodding like she was part of a grand production. But no one saw the fine print except Linda, who had demanded the clause be added, that small, almost invisible line that would give her the right to live in the house for as long as she wished. She had made sure it was included, buried in the paperwork, unnoticed by everyone but her. It wasn't a demand. It was a condition of her peace. The only person who understood the weight of that clause was Clay Garner, The quiet real estate lawyer she had known for years. He had been efficient, as always. His voice calm, his movements precise. He sealed the deed in an envelope and locked it away, ensuring the clause was untraceable unless someone dug. He had warned her at the time. If they ever challenge this, you'll need proof, and it'll be messy. Linda, steady as ever, had nodded, understanding. She had never intended to use it, but people like Natalie always had a way of pushing. They had never read the deed. They never questioned it. And now, it was time. Now, everything that had been silently festering in her heart for years, the resentment, the quiet disrespect, was coming to a head. Linda's hand moves almost instinctively to her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen. She knows exactly who to text. The message is brief. I want to initiate removal. Seconds pass, and then the reply. Clay's message is as brief as hers. Quiet or formal. She doesn't hesitate. Quiet, then rapt. It feels like the words land heavily in her chest. She knows this is the turning point, the moment when everything shifts. No grand show, no confrontation, just the quiet, final truth. The way she's always preferred to handle things. But this time, the silence won't protect anyone. The phone buzzes again, this time June's name flashing across the screen. Linda knows June is waiting too, waiting for the signal to begin. She reads the message aloud softly to herself, smiling to no one in particular. You gonna drop it in a gift bag? Linda's voice is steady, almost amused as she taps her reply. No, a hinged box, with ribbon. A pause hangs in the air as she sets the phone down. The gift, she thinks. She imagines it, crisp, formal, elegant. Wrapped in something that might look like holiday cheer, but in truth, it's the bow that hides the bitterness beneath. The eviction letter, so perfectly packaged, would arrive like a surprise, just another part of the season's festivities. It won't be the first gift she's ever given Natalie, but it will be the last one she ever has to. A flash of movement from the corner of the room catches her attention. It's Mark, standing in the doorway, watching her, unsure whether to speak or leave. His eyes are downcast, and for a moment she sees him as he really is. Nervous, caught between loyalty to his wife and the quiet understanding that something is wrong. He opens his mouth, but the words don't come. Instead, he sighs, rubbing the back of his neck as if searching for a way to fix something he knows cannot be fixed. Linda doesn't look up at him. She doesn't have to. She's already made her choice. The quiet hum of the snow outside grows louder, as if the world itself is holding its breath. And inside, everything shifts, just enough to change the course of what's coming. Linda stands slowly, her hands resting on the counter. She looks at the tree in the living room again. Its branches weighed down with ornaments, its lights twinkling like tiny stars, a tree that hides the truth. And now, finally, the truth will be unwrapped. The table is set, the clink of silverware and the hum of small talk filling the room as the final touches are placed. The chandelier overhead casts a soft golden glow, and the heavy scent of roasting turkey mingles with the faint tang of cranberries. The table is too large for just 4 people, but Natalie insists it's the right size. Perfect for when the renovations are finished and the house is properly updated. Linda's gaze flickers over the polished wood surface, the glassware gleaming, and the empty chairs around the table. The weight of it all, the formality, the posturing, presses down on her. Even as she adjusts the napkin at her lap, Mark sits beside her, the nervous energy radiating from him more palpable than the warmth from the oven. He's already had a couple of drinks, his cheeks flushed, though his eyes remain distracted, scanning the room but not really seeing anything. He keeps his hands busy, lifting the serving platter, passing the rolls, and keeping his movements robotic, efforts to fill the space, to appear useful. Natalie, at the head of the table, carves the turkey with precision. Her movements are sharp, purposeful, almost too perfect. The knife slides effortlessly through the flesh, and each cut is measured as though she's executing a well-rehearsed routine. Her eyes dart across the room, scanning for any sign of approval. Mark passes the rolls to Aaron without looking at her, then glances at Linda. His gaze falls back to the turkey, his hand suddenly still, as if he's waiting for something he doesn't quite understand. The food smells like a holiday, but there's a tension in the air, thick and unwelcome. Linda picks at her plate, pushing a few vegetables around, but her appetite is absent. She's eaten enough to be polite, but not enough to be satisfied. Her fork moves in slow, deliberate circles, the action methodical. She doesn't look up at anyone, doesn't respond to the small talk about next year's plans. Her thoughts are elsewhere, on a contract, a promise made, and the slow burn of what's to come. Her silence is its own kind of statement. "So, next year," Natalie says, breaking the silence, her voice cutting through the thick air like a well-sharpened blade. She's just finishing carving the last of the turkey, setting down the knife with a flourish. "We'll have everything in place for our new kitchen once we gut the front room." She says it with the same certainty as someone declaring the weather forecast, but there's an edge to her words, a need to assert control over everything, every inch of space. Linda's eyes flicker to the front room, barely visible from where she sits. It's cluttered with remnants of a house in transition, the walls chipped, the furniture mismatched. The room is unremarkable, a vague space to be redefined. But the renovations, like everything else, are part of Natalie's plan. And the house has never been just a home for Linda. It's always been something more, something to be conquered. Erin, who had been quiet until now, looks up from her plate. She's been picking at her food too, clearly disinterested in the show that Natalie's putting on. "What front room?" Erin asks, her voice low but direct. She's watching her mother with an expression that mixes curiosity and quiet resistance. "This one," Natalie replies, with a wave of her hand, dismissing Erin's question as if it's a trivial matter. She glances at Linda, her smile tight. "Once we've gutted it, we'll have a proper space for entertaining. Maybe we can finally do a family dinner without it feeling like we're all living in a cluttered mess." The words hang in the air, loaded with implications. Linda's fingers tighten around her fork. Her gaze remains steady on Natalie, though her face remains composed. "I'd hold off on the demo," she says, her voice quiet but firm. The words are like a soft counterpoint to the grand plans being laid out in front of her. The simple truth she's been keeping for herself, the truth that they've all ignored, starts to make its presence known. "What do you mean, hold off?" Natalie asks, her eyes narrowing slightly, her tone sharper now. She leans forward slightly, her hands steady on her plate. "What's wrong with the front room?" Her voice holds an edge now, like she's not just asking for information, she's demanding it. Linda smiles, the expression soft but deliberate. She doesn't look at Mark, doesn't look at Erin, but at Natalie. The silence between them stretches for a moment, thick and heavy. "No," Linda replies, the word simple but final. "I'm not moving out." The tension in the room shifts, curling like smoke between them. Natalie's eyes widen for just a moment before narrowing into something more calculating. She tries to mask the surprise with a forced chuckle, but the sound doesn't reach her eyes. "Why? Are you planning to stay here forever?" Natalie asks, her voice slipping into something colder, more dismissive. "I don't plan to leave." Linda's gaze doesn't waver. "And I don't plan to go anywhere at all." The table falls silent. The sound of chewing, of forks and knives, fades into the background as each of them processes the words. Mark shifts uncomfortably in his chair, glancing between his mother and his wife. Erin is watching Linda now, eyes wide, as if she's just realized something she hadn't understood before. The room seems to tighten, like a lid closing over everything Linda's been holding in. The quiet weight of the moment presses down on them all. Linda doesn't look away, doesn't look at her son or his wife. She simply sits there, the silence around her thickening until it feels like the walls themselves are closing in. And outside, the snow continues to fall, unbroken, untouched. But inside, something has shifted. The Christmas morning sunlight filters weakly through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. The fire crackles low in the hearth, but it's the kind of Christmas warmth that feels more obligatory than comforting. The tree sparkles brightly with its artificial cheer, baubles and tinsel glimmering like they're trying too hard to convince the room that everything is fine, that this is still the holiday it's supposed to be. But it isn't. Natalie's hands tremble slightly as she reaches for the small square box nestled under the tree. The packaging is neat, the ribbon tied in a flawless bow. It looks festive enough, a present for her. For all the years of effort, the remodel plans, the endless, exhausting control she's exercised over every inch of the house, it's the perfect moment. This is her holiday. She'll unwrap this gift like every other, as if everything is still fine. Linda watches quietly from the armchair, the smile on her face calm, serene, as if she is a spectator rather than a participant in what's about to unfold. Her eyes don't shift from the box as Natalie carefully lifts the lid. The sound of the paper crinkling is too sharp in the stillness, but it's the silence that follows which feels heavier. Inside the box, wrapped in a layer of delicate tissue paper, lies an envelope. Its pristine, sharp corners, white as fresh snow, and it holds her full legal name printed at the top in dark, formal lettering. Natalie pauses for a beat, her fingers lingering on the edges, her face tight as she processes what it is. For a moment, there's nothing but the sound of the fires crackling, the faint hiss of the logs burning. Mark, perched at the edge of his seat, glances over at Natalie. His breath catches in his throat, though he doesn't know why. He's been quiet all morning, perhaps too quiet, unsure how to read the room, unsure of how to read his mother, or his wife, or even himself. Natalie's fingers tremble again as she pulls the letter from the envelope. The weight of it feels wrong in her hands, as if it's something more than paper. She slowly unfolds it, and her eyes skim the first line. The smile that had been frozen on her face flickers, a small crack in the mask she's been wearing so effortlessly. The words seem to hit her harder than she expected. This letter serves as formal notice of revoked occupancy, effective January 31st. Her breath hitches. The silence that follows feels so thick, it almost suffocates the air. She doesn't know how to respond, and for the first time this holiday, her confidence falters. She blinks, slowly, as though trying to process it, but the words are too sharp, too cold. The paper trembles in her hand as she reads it again, her mind spinning in disbelief. What is this? Her voice comes out quieter than she expects, her attempt at control faltering with each syllable. Linda shifts slightly in her chair, her eyes never leaving Natalie. There's no hurry, no rush in her movements, just calm. The corners of her mouth turn upward, but there's no warmth behind it. A new year, a clean one, she says softly, as though explaining the simplest of concepts. For a moment there's no response. The words hang between them like smoke, unspoken, but clear. Natalie's lips part, but nothing comes out. She stares at the letter, her mind racing to make sense of what she's holding, of the life that suddenly feels out of her control. Mark leans forward, squinting at the letter over Natalie's shoulder. His eyes flick back and forth between the paper and his mother. A quick breath escapes him. "Is this real?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the words themselves might break something, might break him. Linda doesn't shift her gaze. Her voice is steady, cool. "As real as the deed in my name." There's no room for misunderstanding in her words. No room for negotiation. She lets the weight of that finality settle in. Mark's hands tighten around the edge of his chair. He sits back, the air leaving his lungs in a short exhale. He looks at his mother, but this time, there's a shift in his eyes. A recognition, perhaps a faint understanding of the years of quiet tension he's never fully noticed. Natalie doesn't speak, though she tries to, her mouth opening, her chest rising and falling, but no words come out. The letter in her hand feels heavier now, suffocating. Her eyes dart to Mark, then to Linda, her confusion mounting. Everything she thought she controlled, everything she thought was hers, including this house, is slipping through her fingers. She feels it, like sand, running faster than she can grasp. Her heart races, panic threatening to take over, but she holds herself together just long enough to stammer. What do you mean by this, Mom?" The question is a plea, but it doesn't sound like one. It's too sharp, too demanding, not like the questions a daughter should ask her mother. Linda stands slowly from her chair, her movements measured, deliberate. She walks over to the small table where the coffee mugs sit, her fingers lightly brushing the edge of the counter. The stillness of the room presses down on them all, and the clock ticks in the background, each passing second louder than the last. "I mean, this is where it ends," Linda says, her voice a quiet storm. "You signed the papers. You knew what you were doing." She turns slightly, her eyes locking with Natalie's. "But now, I'm done with it." A long silence stretches, the space between them almost unbearable. The air feels heavy with the weight of decisions made, of years lived in silent patience. Now reaching the moment where everything changes. And outside, the snow falls softly, but inside, the storm has only just begun. The silence that followed Linda's last words is thick, almost suffocating. The room feels smaller now, the walls pressing in like they're about to collapse. The weight of the letter in Natalie's hand seems to grow heavier with each breath she takes. Her fingers are stiff, still clutching the paper as though it might slip from her grasp. But the truth keeps sinking deeper into her bones, a cold, hard truth that won't let her go. Mark doesn't say anything, though his eyes flick back and forth between his mother and his wife. His lips are pressed together, his body frozen in place. He feels trapped, unsure whether to defend his wife or stand with his mother. He doesn't know what's happening, but everything inside him urges him to say something, anything, to break the tension. But his voice catches in his throat, swallowed by the gravity of the moment. Then Natalie speaks. "You can't do this." Her voice breaks the silence like a crack of thunder, raw and furious. It's a scream filled with disbelief, with fear. She stands up so suddenly that the chair she was sitting in scrapes harshly against the floor. Her eyes, wide with panic, dart between Linda and Mark, seeking an answer, seeking someone to fix this. "You can't just," she stammers, her voice rising, a knot of frustration building in her chest. "This is my home. You're kicking me out." Linda doesn't flinch. She doesn't move an inch from where she stands by the coffee table, her posture calm, almost relaxed. The only motion is her fingers, which reach slowly into her purse, the movement deliberate, unhurried. The stillness of the room amplifies the sound of her hand brushing against the leather, of the faint rustling as she pulls out a small, folded document. Mark's gaze sharpens as Linda opens it. He knows what it is. He should have known. But it hits him again with the same coldness, like a punch in the gut. Linda unfolds the paper slowly, her eyes scanning the lines. It's the deed. The deed that's been in her name all along. Mark opens his mouth, but Linda doesn't wait. She points to a section near the bottom of the page, her finger tracing the words as she speaks with quiet finality. Section 8, she says, her voice low but clear. Owner reserves right to revoke co-occupant status at any time. She holds the paper up, her eyes meeting Natalie's as she allows the weight of the words to settle between them. Natalie takes a step back, her breath hitching in her throat as she processes what she's hearing. "What the hell does that mean?" she snaps, her voice trembling with disbelief and fury. Her eyes flick between Linda and the paper, but the truth, now laid bare before her, feels like a punch to the stomach. "You signed it." Linda replies simply, her tone steady, unwavering. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. The finality of her words carries the weight of years spent quietly biding her time. It's over now. Mark's face pales. He stands up abruptly, his chair scraping noisily against the floor, his eyes wide. "You put this in the paperwork?" he demands, his voice rising in a mixture of shock and anger. The pieces are falling into place, and he's finally starting to understand the magnitude of the situation. But even now, he doesn't fully grasp how deep this goes, how much Linda has been holding back all these years. Linda's eyes remain fixed on him, her gaze unflinching. "You signed it," she repeats, as if there's nothing more to say, as if the simple truth is enough. The room is heavy with tension, the silence suffocating. Natalie's eyes flick from Linda to Mark and back again, as if searching for something, anything that could change the direction they're headed. Her voice cracks with frustration as she takes a step forward, her words sharp, desperate. "Where are we supposed to go?" Her question is more than just words. It's a plea, a cry for help that she doesn't want to admit she needs. Linda takes a slow, steady breath, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "I'd start packing before the snow thaws," she says, each word deliberate, unyielding. Her voice has no trace of hesitation. She's made her decision, and there's no turning back now. For a moment, everything is still. Natalie stands frozen, the anger and disbelief twisting on her face. Mark's jaw is clenched, his fists tight at his sides. The silence that follows is deafening, each second stretching longer than the last, the words sinking into the air like stones thrown into a still pond. Natalie stares at Linda, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She's trying to process what's just happened, trying to understand how the situation spiraled so far out of control. The house, the one thing she thought was hers, slips from her fingers, unraveling before her very eyes. Mark finally looks away, his shoulders slumping with the weight of it all. He moves toward Natalie, his hand brushing her arm. But she pulls away sharply, the movement sudden and sharp, like she's been burned. Her anger flares again, a flash of fire in her eyes. Linda watches them both, her expression unchanged. She doesn't need to say anything more. The truth is already out there, wrapped in the quiet finality of a contract, in the cold, inevitable weight of what she's done. The snow outside continues to fall, but inside, the storm has reached its peak. And there's no going back. The front door creaks open, and Linda's heart doesn't skip a beat. She doesn't need to look up to know who's standing there. It's the presence she's been waiting for. Steady and reliable. June. Linda had known this moment would come, the moment when the house would finally feel too small for the truth to remain hidden any longer. June steps in, a warm, solid figure against the cold morning. Her coat is simple but elegant, her expression calm, composed, as always. It's almost as if she's stepped out of a different world, a world where things don't get messy, where people can be trusted, and where justice, even if it's slow, is inevitable. Linda doesn't need to say a word. June closes the door behind her, her gaze sweeping over the room, taking in the tension, the silent chaos that lingers between Linda and her son and daughter-in-law. Without hesitation, June walks over to Linda, offering a firm hug that feels like both comfort and solidarity. "You doing okay?" June's voice is soft, but there's an edge to it, one that Linda recognizes. It's not just concern, it's an acknowledgement of the weight of what's happening. Linda pulls back from the hug, offering a small smile. "I'm fine," she says, though the words don't come out as easily as they usually do. The truth, the reality of this moment is finally setting in. It feels heavy, but it feels right. She feels more herself than she has in years. Natalie's glare cuts across the room as she watches June walk into the house, her face contorting with a mix of disbelief and irritation. "Oh, great!" she hisses, crossing her arms tightly. "Your little sidekick's here." The words come out sharp, acidic, as if June's presence is another betrayal she has to endure. Linda doesn't flinch at the comment. She's learned long ago that Natalie's barbs are just noise, empty words thrown in anger, but meaningless. Instead, she looks over at June, who is unfazed by the verbal attack, her gaze calm and unshaken. "I'm here as a witness," June says, her voice level and firm, the quiet authority in her words cutting through the tension in the room. "Legal and moral." Mark shifts uneasily, his eyes darting between the women, clearly unsure what to make of June's presence. The reality of the situation is finally hitting him, and the confusion on his face is a clear reflection of the uncertainty swirling inside him. He had thought this would all go smoothly, that everything would fall into place. But now, with June here, with the deed, with the finality of Linda's actions, the ground beneath him feels unstable. June doesn't waste time. She reaches into her purse and pulls out an envelope, handing it to Mark without a word. It's heavy, official-looking. The kind of envelope that doesn't need to be opened to understand that it holds something important. Mark hesitates for a moment before taking it from her, his hands trembling slightly as he tears the seal open. His eyes scan the document inside, and his face pales as he reads the first line. It's from Clay Garner, the lawyer who had handled all the paperwork. The same lawyer who had sealed the deed away when Linda made sure her right to stay in the house was protected. The letter is clear. The proof of transfer. Signed in 2021. And then, there it is. His name. He was there. He signed it. Mark's gaze flicks up from the letter, his face a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You kept this from me?" he asks, his voice tight, his knuckles white as he grips the letter. The words aren't a question as much as an accusation, but Linda isn't moved. She's already given him every chance to understand. "I kept my promise," Linda replies, her voice steady, unwavering. "I let you live here rent-free, but you broke the trust." Her eyes don't leave Mark's, and there's something final in the way she says it, something that suggests this is the last conversation they'll have about it. Mark stands there for a moment, the letter shaking in his hands as he processes the words. He looks to Natalie, his expression confused, almost pleading. "You're really going through with this?" His voice cracks with frustration, as if he's hoping for a different answer. For a reason to believe that this isn't real, that it's just a misunderstanding, some kind of mistake. But Linda doesn't soften. She doesn't offer him a way out. "You signed it," she repeats. The words simple but heavy. "You knew exactly what you were doing." The silence hangs between them like a thick fog. It presses down, suffocating, but Linda stands unflinching in the eye of it. There's no going back now. She has already made her peace with what's happening, and she doesn't need anyone's approval. Not anymore. Mark's gaze shifts, as though searching for something, but he finds nothing. Nothing he can say, no words that can change the reality of the situation. June watches it all quietly, her expression unchanged. She's been here before, in different situations, but the feeling is the same. Watching someone finally face the consequences of their actions. Watching the truth come out, no matter how much it hurts. Finally, Mark turns away, a deep sigh escaping him as he slumps back into a chair. The fight has left him. He doesn't know what to do next. Doesn't know how to move forward. Linda turns to June, the two of them exchanging a quiet understanding. The worst of it is over now. The house has finally started to belong to her again, not just in name, but in spirit. And as the snow continues to fall outside, covering the world in white, Linda finally feels the weight lift. There's no more holding back. No more waiting. The storm is over. But the world around them has changed forever. The heavy click of Linda's suitcase closing is the only sound in the room, cutting through the silence that has settled over the house. It's a quiet finality, one that resonates in her bones, in the very air she breathes. The suitcase is small, compact, a perfect fit for her essentials, and as she zips it shut, she stands for a moment, looking around the room that had once been her sanctuary. Now, it's just a place of memories, each corner a reminder of what she's lost and what she's gained. The same bag Natalie had kicked aside just days ago now holds her life, everything she needs to start over. Linda's eyes linger on the photograph on the dresser, the one of her and Mark from years ago, when he was a child, before everything became so complicated. The smile in the picture is pure, before resentment and manipulation had settled between them like a slow poison. She picks up the frame, hesitates, and then sets it back down. It's time to leave those memories behind. The rest of the house feels like a stranger's home. The air, thick with tension, hasn't felt like hers for years, and now it's time to move on. A soft knock on the door breaks her from her thoughts, and she walks over to open it. Standing there is June, her coat off and arms full of groceries. "I figured you'd need a few things to get started," June says with a smile, her voice low but warm. Linda smiles back, the first real smile she's had in days. "You didn't have to." "I know," June cuts in gently, stepping inside. "But I wanted to. A little housewarming, even if it's just a fridge to fill." The two of them share a brief, understanding glance, and Linda takes the bags, moving them to the kitchen. The condo is small but cozy, just as it was in the brochures. White walls, clean countertops, the kind of place that feels fresh, new. A fresh start. Not just for Linda, but for everything she's going to rebuild. No more clutter, no more noise. Just peace. As June unpacks the bags, arranging everything meticulously, Linda watches, her gaze moving across the room. The light coming through the windows is different here. Soft and filtered. Less harsh than the heavy sunlight that used to pour through the windows of the old house. Here, she feels like she can breathe. It's strange, almost surreal, but it's the kind of surreal she's come to embrace. June finishes stocking the fridge, then stands back and looks around. "First night in peace," she says, her tone almost playful. "How's it feel?" Linda leans against the counter, folding her arms, her eyes tracing the neat lines of the room. It's almost too perfect. Like a house in a magazine, yet it's exactly what she needs. She exhales, the weight of everything settling in her chest. "Like a housewarming and a closing all in one," she says softly, her voice carrying a weight that June understands. The two of them share a quiet look, a moment that says everything without needing words. The phone rings, cutting through the silence, and Linda picks it up with a steady hand. She doesn't even need to see the caller ID to know who it is. "Everything's been delivered," Clay's voice comes through the phone. His tone is neutral, professional, but Linda can hear the satisfaction in it. The final occupancy revocation papers have been signed and delivered to the Hendersons. No more delays. Linda closes her eyes, allowing the words to wash over her, each one another step toward closure. The finality of it all feels real now, more than it ever has before. The papers have been delivered. The deed has been done. The house no longer belongs to them. It's hers. And nothing can take that away. Thank you, Clay, Linda says, her voice steady, unwavering. There's a brief pause on the line. You're welcome, Linda, Clay replies. It's been a long road. But you got there. Take care of yourself. The call ends, and Linda puts the phone down slowly. She turns to June, who's watching her with quiet understanding. It's not a victory, not in the way Natalie might have expected. It's a reclaiming, a return to peace. Everything's done, Linda says, her voice almost a whisper. It's over. June nods, but she doesn't speak. There's nothing left to say. The storm has passed. The house is behind them, and for the first time in years, Linda feels like she can finally exhale. She takes a step into the living room, running her fingers along the edge of the bookshelf. The place is simple, unadorned. No clutter. No fighting for space. Just her. The air here is clean. The silence different. As if it's been waiting for her to make this choice all along. Outside, the snow still falls, soft and persistent, blanketing the world in white. The windows are clear, unbroken, offering a view of something untouched. A new world, a fresh start. And for the first time, Linda feels like she can breathe freely again. The past is behind her, and now, everything is hers to rebuild. The storm may have only just begun, but for Linda, it feels like the calm after it all. The soft knock at the door is a gentle interruption, breaking the quiet that has filled Linda's new home since she arrived. She turns from the window, where the snow continues to fall in slow, lazy spirals, and walks toward the door. For a moment, she wonders who it could be, another reminder of the past, or someone looking to drag her back into the chaos. But when she opens it, she's met with a familiar face. Erin stands on the other side, her eyes swollen from crying. Her hair slightly disheveled, but there's no judgment in her expression, no demand for answers. Just presence. Her arms open, and before Linda can say anything, Erin steps forward and pulls her into a hug. The embrace is tight, warm, and it feels like a silent apology wrapped in comfort. No words are needed. Linda feels her own breath catch in her throat, a feeling she hasn't experienced in what feels like forever. For a moment, she allows herself to just be held, to be human again, to let the weight of everything fall away in the warmth of her granddaughter's embrace. The world outside, the one with its cold, hard edges, fades away. Erin pulls back just enough to look at Linda, her hands still on her shoulders. Her voice is soft, but filled with a quiet, lingering sadness. I didn't know how bad it had gotten, she says, her gaze flicking to the apartment behind Linda, to the pristine space that feels almost too clean, too new for everything that has just transpired. Linda nods, her eyes softening, but there's no anger there, just resignation, and perhaps a little sorrow. You didn't want to look, she says, her voice steady. It's not an accusation, but a simple truth. Erin had been caught between her loyalty to her mother and the awkward, painful distance that had grown between her and Linda. She hadn't wanted to see the house falling apart, the family unraveling, and Linda understood that more than anyone. Erin looks down, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve, and then she looks back up at Linda, her eyes uncertain. What happens now? She asks, the question lingering in the air between them. It's a question Linda has been asking herself. even though she knows the answer. She's made her peace with it all. She's moving on, but the next chapter isn't as clear for Erin. Linda walks slowly into the room, her feet moving lightly across the hardwood floors. She stops by the small coffee table, running her fingers over the edges. The space feels like hers now. No distractions, no disruptions. It's not perfect, but it's real. And it's hers. They move out, Linda says, turning to face Erin, her voice steady. I move on. She shrugs lightly, as though it's as simple as that, though she knows the weight of it all. The years spent living in tension, the finality of it. You? You get to choose, Linda adds, her eyes softening as she meets Erin's gaze. Erin is quiet for a long moment. She looks out the window, her gaze distant. Her mind clearly working through the heavy realization of what Linda is saying. Do I still have a place in your life? Erin's voice cracks just a little, a sign of the vulnerability she's been holding inside. It's a simple question, but it carries everything. The guilt, the confusion, the longing for connection that had been buried beneath the surface for so long. Linda steps closer to her, her expression softening, and for the first time, she reaches out to gently touch Erin's cheek. Of course you do, Linda replies, her voice low and warm. You always will. There's a long pause before Erin looks up at her, the weight of the words sinking in. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that, she admits, her voice raw. I thought I had to choose, between you and them. Between loyalty and what was right. But I never knew how bad it had gotten. Not really. And now. She trails off, her gaze flicking to the empty space between them. Linda smiles softly, her heart heavy with a mixture of love and regret. You don't have to choose, Erin. You've always had a place here, and you always will. But you need to decide where your peace is. And if you want to be part of my life, then you come to me. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Erin's eyes glisten, and for a moment, Linda can see the weight of the years lifting from her granddaughter's shoulders. She nods slowly, a quiet acceptance settling over her. It's not a perfect resolution, but it's real. And that's enough. The silence lingers, but it's not uncomfortable. It's a shared understanding, a moment of connection that has been lost for too long. Erin steps forward and hugs Linda again, this time without any hesitation, her arms wrapping around her tightly, as if making up for all the lost time. Linda closes her eyes, feeling the warmth of the embrace, knowing that despite everything, the fights, the distance, the pain, there's something solid here. Something that can't be taken away. Not by them, not by anyone. She has Erin back. She has herself back. And for the first time in a long time, Linda feels like she can finally breathe. The air inside Snowberry Lane law offices is crisp, almost antiseptic, the scent of polished wood and paper filling the space. Linda steps into the lobby, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The office is quiet, the kind of place where time seems to stand still, where decisions are made with the quiet finality of a gavel. She walks past the receptionist, who smiles politely, her expression neutral but kind. Linda nods in return, not bothering to ask for small talk. She knows the way. She's been here before, years ago, when her marriage was still a living thing, and when the world felt a lot more like it was in her control. Now she walks into a different room, one that has become more familiar in the past few weeks than her own home. Clay Garner is waiting for her, sitting behind a large mahogany desk. The sunlight from the windows catches the edge of his glasses, making his face look colder than usual. His hands are folded neatly in front of him, and the rest of the room feels ordered, methodical, everything in its place. Good to see you, Linda, Clay says, his voice smooth, professional, a slight smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. He rises, offering his hand, and she takes it firmly, feeling the weight of their shared history press on her as he gestures toward the chair across from him. "Thank you for meeting me," she says, sitting down and crossing her legs, adjusting her bag at her side. She doesn't need to waste time with pleasantries. Clay settles back into his chair, taking a moment to organize the paperwork in front of him, as if he's preparing for something that's been long overdue. Finally, he looks up, his eyes steady. "You're here to finalize the changes to your will, then?" Linda nods, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Yes." She doesn't waste any time. She's had more than enough time to think this through, to understand what it means, to make peace with the decision. She meets his gaze. "I want to remove Natalie and Mark as beneficiaries." Clay raises an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," she replies without hesitation. "They've had their chance. They broke the trust." Clay pauses, writing something down on his pad, the sound of his pen against paper sharp in the otherwise quiet room. He doesn't ask for more clarification. He doesn't need to. He understands what Linda means. "I'll make those changes. But what about Erin?" Clay asks, flipping through the papers to the next section. "How do you want to structure her inheritance?" Linda leans forward, her fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. "Erin will be added as a conditional heir," she says carefully, "with a service clause. She needs to earn it, but I want to give her the chance." Clay's pen stops moving, and for the first time his gaze softens slightly. "A service clause?" Linda nods, her expression resolute. "Yes. I want her to prove she's willing to commit. She needs to show she's ready, not just financially, but emotionally. Ready to take on what this family and this home represent. I don't want her to just inherit the money. I want her to understand what it means." Clay seems to consider this for a moment, his fingers tapping the pen against the desk. "I'll include that. I'll also include a provision for you to revise it in the future if needed." Linda's jaw tightens. "Yes. Make sure it's clear. Erin will be the only one I'll ever consider now. Not Mark. Not Natalie. If they want what's mine, they'll have to earn it in a way that proves they've learned something." Clay nods slowly, writing down the specifics. The quiet hum of the office seems to echo in Linda's mind, the weight of the moment settling around her. "And what about the rest of it?" Clay asks, shifting the conversation slightly. "The remainder of your estate?" Linda's eyes flicker to the window, where the light seems to be fading outside, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the ground. She lets the silence linger before answering. "I want to donate part of it to the Winter Glen Arts Fund," she says, her voice firm. "They're the only ones I trust to use it properly." Clay's expression doesn't change, but there's something slightly approving in his gaze. "I'll make sure it's documented. The foundation will be notified." Linda lets out a slow breath, the weight of the decision beginning to feel like it's lifted off her shoulders. She's done it. She's set everything in motion. There's no turning back now. The house, the family, none of it belongs to them anymore. The legacy will be hers, and hers alone. Clay places the pen down, pushing the final draft toward her. "Everything's in order. You can sign when you're ready." Linda's eyes move across the document, taking in the words, feeling the finality of it all. She reaches for the pen, her fingers brushing the cool surface of the paper. For the first time, she doesn't hesitate. She signs, steady and sure. As she finishes, she looks up at Clay. "It's done." Clay nods, standing up as he gathers the papers. "You gave them every chance, Linda," he says quietly, his tone almost a whisper. "They gave you every reason to make this choice." Linda stands as well, the finality of her words settling over them both. "Yes," she replies, her voice soft but unwavering. "And now, I'm done with it. I'm done with them." There's a quiet power in the way she says it, a quiet strength that seems to fill the room. The storm inside her has passed, but the world around her is still. And in this silence, Linda knows she's made the right choice. "Take care of yourself, Linda," Clay says, as he hands her a final copy of the will. She nods, slipping the document into her bag. She walks out of the office, the sound of her footsteps sure and steady. The weight of the world finally where it belongs, behind her, and ahead of her, only peace. Linda sits at her kitchen table, the laptop before her, the screen glowing softly in the dim light. The last few days have felt like a slow-motion unraveling of everything she'd spent years holding together. The phone calls, the messages, the endless attempts to reach her that she'd ignored. They're all part of the final steps of this path she's set herself on, and now, the last piece of the puzzle is in place. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, unsure for a brief moment, before she clicks open her email. There, in her inbox, is the social post she'd been waiting for. One she hadn't seen but had known was coming. Mark had shared it, one of those impromptu Facebook posts about family, about holidays, about moving forward. But it wasn't the usual sentimentality, it was a declaration, a silent challenge. Moving forward is all about shedding the past, even if it means cutting out toxic people. Can't make room for those who won't let you grow. She feels a pang in her chest, but it isn't the hurt she might have expected. It's a quiet, deep knowing. He has no idea what he's done. She leans forward, opening a new email. Her fingers are steady as she types out a short note to Clay. "You should see this. This is everything we need. They're still trying to play the victim. It's all over social media." She attaches the screenshot of the post to her email and presses send, her thumb lingering over the send button before she lets it go. The email vanishes into the ether, and for a moment, there's nothing but the quiet hum of the room around her. A moment later, the response comes. "This strengthens your case. No sympathy in court now." Linda reads it and a smile forms on her lips, not out of joy, but out of something far colder. It's done. There's nothing more to say. The social media post, the unwitting confession, seals it. They've never understood what they've been playing at. They never understood the price of betrayal. She closes the laptop with a sharp click, standing up from the table, her movements deliberate. The whole world feels different now, as if the air around her has thickened with purpose. She moves to her phone, and with a swipe, she blocks Mark's number. For a moment, the silence that follows feels complete. No more calls, no more texts, just the weight of decisions made and actions taken. But then, the sound of the doorbell rings through the quiet of the house, jarring her from her thoughts. Linda pauses for a moment, feeling the tension knot in her stomach. She knows what's coming, what has to come. She walks to the door, her footsteps light but resolute, and opens it to find a delivery driver standing there, holding an envelope. It's thick, official-looking, and the moment she sees it, she knows what it is. It's the first piece of the eviction process. The formality of it all. Something she's already known would happen, but seeing it in person brings a cold certainty she hadn't fully prepared for. The driver hands her the envelope, and she doesn't flinch. She takes it without a word and watches as he walks back to his truck. She closes the door quietly, almost reverently. This is the moment. She tears open the envelope with steady hands, and there, in bold print, is her name. Their names. But her final decision. The letter is short, precise, but carries the finality she's been aiming for all along. This letter serves as formal notice of eviction. You are required to vacate the premises within 30 days. Failure to do so will result in further legal action. Linda feels a brief ripple of satisfaction. No more beating around the bush. No more pretending to hold on to something that never belonged to her, or to them. Just as she sets the letter down on the counter, her phone vibrates. It's a call from Mark, the number she just blocked. He's calling from another line. She doesn't pick up. Instead, she presses the button that sends his call straight to voicemail, her finger lingering on the screen as the phone continues to buzz. She knows what he'll say. The questions, the pleading, the half-formed excuses that never seem to end. He's always been more about managing his own discomfort than facing the truth. And now, he will be left with nothing but his own mistakes. The voicemail comes through, and she listens. His voice is strained, breaking. "Mom, please. Please pick up. We need to talk. This is just wrong. You can't do this to us." Linda's heart doesn't skip a beat. It's what she expected. No understanding. Just shock. The realization that he's no longer in control. That's the real weight of it. The sudden loss of power. The shift in the world that only she can see. Only she has orchestrated. She swipes the voicemail away without responding, her mind already focused on the next step. The calm that has descended upon her is not out of forgiveness, but out of something more profound. Freedom. She walks back into the living room, glancing at the envelope on the counter, the ticking of the clock seeming louder now. The final clock has begun to count down. From behind her, Erin's voice breaks the silence. "They don't even feel sorry, just surprised," she says softly, entering the room quietly, her tone gentle but knowing. Linda turns, meeting her granddaughter's eyes. She knows what Erin means, and she knows the cost of their ignorance. But it's too late for regret, too late for apologies that won't be made. Linda smiles softly, a look of quiet strength settling over her features. "They'll never understand," she says, her voice a steady whisper. But it's not for them to understand anymore. And in that moment, Linda knows. Everything is changing. The coat feels like a warm embrace against the chill of the morning, its soft wool a gift from June. A small token of her support. Linda pulls it tighter around her shoulders as she steps out of the elevator and into the common area of the Winter Glen senior condos. The place is lively, a stark contrast to the silence of her old home. The soft hum of laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the murmur of conversations all blend into an unexpected kind of comfort. Linda surveys the room, taking in the mix of residents. Some are older, some younger, but all of them seem to carry a certain ease, an unspoken understanding of the space they share. Here, she's not just the widow or the woman scorned. She's simply one of them, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she doesn't feel like an outsider. June waves at her from across the room, holding a glass of spiked cider, a mischievous glint in her eye. Linda walks over, her boots clicking softly against the polished floors. She greets a few familiar faces, offering smiles, but it's the easy conversation that feels unfamiliar. It's genuine, without strings attached. "Glad you made it," June says, handing her a drink. "A little something to loosen up after everything." Linda takes the drink, savoring the warmth that flows through her. "Thank you, June. I needed this." "Of course you do," June says with a wink. "It's not a proper new beginning without a toast." The conversation flows easily around her. For the first time, Linda doesn't feel like she's on the edge, watching from the outside. She's pulled in, listened to, included. No one's waiting for her to apologize, to explain. They're just happy she's here. It feels natural, easy, like this is where she was always meant to be. A man in his late 60s raises a glass to her as he passes by. "We heard you served your family justice on a silver platter," he says, his voice a mixture of admiration and a bit of humor. Linda chuckles softly, the weight of his words settling in. She raises her glass in acknowledgement. "More like gift wrap and legal proof," she replies, her voice steady. The words come naturally now. The realization that it's truly over. She's no longer the one being judged, no longer the one expected to be wrong. The truth is out, and she's moved on. The crowd laughs and continues their conversation, but the words echo in Linda's mind. She takes a slow sip of the cider, the tang of it reminding her of something simpler, something that feels like relief. The storm of the past few weeks is over. She's finally free. As the conversation continues around her, her phone buzzes in her pocket. Linda reaches into her bag, pulls out her phone, and unlocks it. The text is from Aaron. The message is short, but Linda can read between the lines. They're leaving. They're bitter. But they're gone. A sense of finality settles over her, as though the last chapter has been written. The words hit her differently now, not with anger, but with a quiet peace. They're gone. The people who never understood, who never saw her, are finally out of her life. She takes another sip of her drink, her eyes scanning the room, feeling the warmth of the space around her. It's not just the physical warmth. It's the kind of warmth that comes from being seen, from being accepted. And it feels like a new home, a new start. Her phone buzzes again, but this time, she doesn't reach for it. Instead, she sets it down on the table next to her and looks around at the people gathered in the room. She's no longer tethered to the past. She no longer needs to look over her shoulder, waiting for an apology that will never come. For the first time, Linda feels like she can breathe. Really breathe. She's taken control of her life, and she has a future ahead of her, free from the chains of guilt and expectation. One of the residents raises a toast again, this time to the group. To new beginnings, they say, their voices rising in unison. Linda smiles, lifting her glass, joining the group. The weight of the last few months, of the years of tension and struggle, seems to fade in the company of people who simply want to live their lives without burden. As the glasses clink, Linda realizes something. This, here, in this small but welcoming space, is the life she's earned. This is the life that no one can take from her. Her air, her space. And for the first time in years, it feels like everything is right where it's supposed to be. She glances at the window, the snow still falling gently outside, and a sense of peace settles in her chest. This is her time now. Her future. Linda stands in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her jacket. The reflection staring back at her feels unfamiliar but liberating. She hasn't dressed like this in years, no longer concerned with hiding behind faded sweaters and soft cardigans. Today, she wears something sharp, something that suits the woman she's become, not the one she used to be. Her phone vibrates on the counter beside her. It's June, reminding her of the feature article she'd agreed to. A local magazine, one that covers human interest stories, had reached out weeks ago. Linda had hesitated at first. Was this the kind of thing she wanted to share with the world? But now, standing in the quiet aftermath of it all, she sees it for what it is, an opportunity. Not for fame or recognition, but for the kind of closure she couldn't get from Mark or Natalie. She picks up her phone, reads the text, and smiles. Ready for your moment? Don't let them tell your story. You're the one who lived it. Linda nods to herself and replies, I will. The magazine staff is waiting for her in the lobby of the building. They greet her with smiles, and Linda feels a rush of warmth. Not from their hospitality, but from the realization that this is her moment. Not hers to prove, but hers to own. No one else will define who she is or what she's done. The photo shoot is simple, elegant. They have her stand by a window, the natural light falling on her face, soft but illuminating. She is not the broken woman she once was. She is solid, grounded, at peace. The photographer tells her to smile, but she doesn't have to try. Her smile comes naturally, as if the weight of years has finally been lifted from her shoulders. After the shoot, the interview is brief, but it feels like a release. She talks about the journey she's been on, the decisions that have shaped her life, and how she found the strength to reclaim her peace. She's candid, but careful with her words. The past is a story she has rewritten, and she's not about to let it drag her back into a place where she doesn't belong. As she leaves the building, the magazine's editor stops her with a final word. "Thank you for sharing your story. We're honored to tell it." Linda smiles, but it's a quiet smile, a recognition of how far she's come. The article will go live later in the week, but as she steps out into the cool air, she already feels the weight of the story settling in. This is the version of her story that matters. That evening, she's at home, curled up with a cup of tea, when her phone buzzes again. The feature has gone live, and it's already making the rounds. She opens it up, reading the headline, "She gifted herself peace and wrapped it with a bow." The words settle in her chest like a soft breath. She reads the article, the words carefully crafted to reflect the calm strength she's worked so hard to find. The tone is balanced, compassionate, without sensationalizing her actions. It's a story of survival and empowerment, of a woman who chose her own path when everyone else tried to dictate it. As she scrolls down, the comments begin to pour in. Most are supportive, people commending her bravery, her strength. But as she scrolls further, she sees it. The comment from Natalie. It's short, but biting. "This is one-sided." Linda sighs, shaking her head. It's not surprising. Natalie had always been quick to place blame, quick to make herself the victim in every scenario. But Linda isn't interested in playing that game anymore. She taps the screen, flagging the comment for moderation, and it's swiftly removed. Almost immediately, she gets a private message from Aaron. It's a simple text, but it carries the weight of everything Linda's been through. "You still have more grace than they deserve." Linda's thumb hovers over the keyboard as she thinks for a moment. The message, while heartfelt, doesn't fully capture what she's feeling right now. She types back, "That's not grace, that's policy." Her heart swells as she sends it, knowing that Aaron understands. Grace was never part of the equation, not when the people who should have supported her chose to walk away. What Linda has now is far more valuable than grace. It's the quiet, unshakable strength of knowing who she is and who she's become. As the evening continues, Linda's phone buzzes again, this time with a call from June. She answers with a smile, feeling the warmth of the moment settle in. "Hey, you saw the comments, didn't you?" June's voice comes through the phone, light and teasing. "I can't believe she tried to make it all about her again." Linda laughs softly. "It doesn't matter anymore," she says. "They're gone, June, and I'm finally free." The call continues, the conversation flowing easily. Linda talks about the article, the support she's received, and the calm that has finally settled in her heart. As the evening wears on, she feels the shift in herself. The woman who had once been bound by guilt, shame, and expectation has been replaced by someone stronger, someone who has learned that peace is something you have to take for yourself. The doorbell rings, interrupting her thoughts. It's late, but the visitor is expected. It's Aaron. Linda opens the door and they share a quiet hug. "Did you read it?" Aaron asks, her voice tinged with excitement. Linda nods, smiling softly. "It's done. It's all out there." "Good," Aaron says, her voice barely above a whisper. "You deserve that peace." Linda looks at her granddaughter, feeling the weight of everything she's worked for in that simple, genuine smile. Her future, her new life, is just beginning. And for the first time in a long time, Linda feels like she can finally breathe. The envelope sits on the counter, innocuous in its simplicity, but Linda can feel the weight of it. The paper is thick, the edges crisp, too formal for comfort, too deliberate to ignore. She doesn't need to open it to know what's inside. She already knows. The handwriting, the scent of ink, the words that will inevitably spill out. Blame, regret, and a single, feeble attempt at an apology. Mark's letter. She's been avoiding it for days now, leaving it on the counter, hidden in plain sight. But tonight, with the glow of the kitchen light casting soft shadows across the room, Linda knows it's time. It's the last thread of the past, the last piece of the life she once tried to save, and it's all contained in that envelope. She reaches for it slowly, the motion almost mechanical, as if every inch closer to opening it pulls her further back into the weight of those years. The years spent hoping for something more from her son, for a gesture, for an understanding that never came. The letter slips out of its envelope, and she unfolds the pages one by one. 4 pages. 4 pages of words that, at one time, would have devastated her. But now, as she reads through them, they feel hollow. The lines are full of phrases like, "I didn't know," "I never meant to hurt you," and "I'm sorry, but..." But there's no sincerity, no real apology. Just more of the same. His regret isn't about what he did. It's about the consequences, about the fact that he's now facing a reality where he has no control, where she, Linda, is the one in control. The final line is a weak attempt at reaching out, a familiar plea. Can we undo the damage? Linda places the letter down carefully, the weight of it no longer as heavy as it once would have been. Her fingers tremble, not from emotion, but from something deeper. A quiet, internal satisfaction. She doesn't feel guilty for this. She doesn't feel the old shame, the one that always kept her trying to fix things, trying to make them better. No more. The phone buzzes in her pocket. A brief, sharp vibration. She glances down at the screen. It's Mark's number, once again. She knows what it will be, a repeat of the apology, the pleading. It's just another attempt to manipulate, to turn the tables, to drag her back into the past where everything was about him. She doesn't answer. Instead, she walks over to the fire-safe box that's been sitting in the corner of the room, unused for months. The metal feels cold under her hands, but it's the kind of cold that feels like security, a sense of protection from all the things she's left behind, the things she's no longer willing to carry. Linda slips the letter into the box, folding it neatly before closing the lid with a satisfying click. The finality of it rings in the air, the sound echoing in the quiet room. There's no drama, no anger, just a firm decision. No one will ever have access to that letter again. Not Mark, not Natalie, not even her. As she locks the box, her mind clears. The past has been put away, tucked into a corner where it belongs. She doesn't need to dwell on the words anymore. She doesn't need to open that box again. It's done. Just as she places the key back on the counter, June enters the room. She's been waiting in the living room, but now, seeing the way Linda's standing there, she doesn't need to ask what's happened. She already knows. "Did you read it?" June asks quietly, her voice soft, but the question holds an edge of finality. Linda nods slowly, her gaze drifting toward the fire-safe box. "It didn't change anything," she says, her voice steady but calm. June crosses the room to stand beside her, her expression steady. She places a hand on Linda's shoulder, her touch a gentle anchor in the stillness of the room. "He wants what he lost," June says softly, "not who you are." Linda exhales, her chest rising and falling slowly, the weight of those words sinking in. "Exactly," she replies, her voice unwavering. "And I'm not for rent anymore." There's something final in her tone, something that sounds like she said the last word on the matter. And June, ever the understanding friend, simply nods. She knows Linda. She knows what it takes for Linda to come to a decision like this. The silence between them is filled with an understanding deeper than words. Linda's gaze lingers on the fire-safe box for a moment longer before she turns away, walking toward the living room. "I'll be fine now," Linda says, her voice low but firm, as if convincing herself of it for the first time in years. June follows her, a soft smile pulling at the corners of her lips. "I know you will," she says, settling onto the couch. "You've already found your peace?" Linda looks around the room, the firelight flickering softly on the walls, casting long shadows. She feels different now. Lighter somehow, even though the weight of the past hasn't disappeared. She no longer carries it. It's been locked away, and she's moving forward, not because she has to, but because she chooses to. And in that moment, as the night grows quiet and the world outside remains still, Linda knows. She's finally free. It's early Saturday morning when Linda hears the knock at the door. For a moment, she debates whether to ignore it. She's been enjoying the peace of her solitude, the stillness of her new life. But when she looks through the peephole, she sees Aaron standing on the other side, holding a small basket of fresh bread. There's no hesitation this time. Linda opens the door with a smile. "Morning," Aaron says softly, as if testing the waters. Her voice has changed in recent weeks. Lighter, warmer. The girl who once seemed torn between two worlds is finally finding her place in this one. "Morning," Linda replies, her eyes softening as she takes in the sight of her granddaughter. It's a gesture of goodwill, one that Linda's waited for, but she doesn't rush. They've both had their own time to heal. Aaron holds up the basket. "I thought we could bake today, like we used to, when I was little." The nostalgia in her words touches Linda more than she expects. It's a small, simple request, but one that feels like an unspoken apology. Aaron doesn't have to say anything more, because Linda understands. She always has. "Come in," Linda says, stepping aside. The warmth of the house welcoming Aaron as she walks through the door. They move into the kitchen, and the familiar scent of butter and flour fills the space. Linda pulls down a few old mixing bowls, and Aaron sets the basket on the counter, her fingers gently brushing the top of it as though it's something fragile, precious. "I remember the first time we made cookies," Aaron says as she begins measuring out the flour, her movements slow but steady. "You let me put in extra chocolate chips, and I thought it was the best thing in the world." Linda chuckles softly, watching as Aaron works. And for the first time, she feels that sense of connection they'd both lost. The kitchen, once a battleground of silence and tension, now feels like a place of peace again. They work in easy silence, the kind that only comes with shared history. They bake, mixing the dough with practiced ease, and as the cookies bake, Linda pulls out an old album from the shelf. She flips through it, stopping at pictures from when Aaron was a child, her first day of school, her 5th birthday party, family holidays. The memories feel distant now, but they don't hurt. They're just pieces of the past, part of the story Linda's lived, and now has the freedom to revisit. Aaron watches her grandmother flipping through the photos, her hand pausing over a picture of the two of them at the beach, laughing in the sunlight. "I forgot how much we used to do together," she says quietly. "Before everything." Linda pauses, looking at the picture. The memory is bittersweet, but it's not painful. It's just the truth. "We used to, didn't we?" she replies. "But you were always caught between two worlds. And I didn't make it easy on you." Erin's eyes soften, her fingers tracing the edges of the photo. "You didn't make it easy on yourself either," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't make it better." Linda reaches over, placing a hand on Erin's. "You didn't have to. You didn't demand it. You showed up. The words hang between them for a moment, settling into something unspoken, something that feels like understanding. Linda knows it's not just the cookies or the pictures. They're rebuilding what they've lost piece by piece. This isn't about earning anything. It's about reconnecting. The oven timer dings, signaling that the cookies are ready. Erin stands, stretching her arms above her head. "Let me get them," she says, her voice light, before moving to take the tray out of the oven. The warmth of the cookies fills the room, and for a moment, it's as if nothing has ever been wrong. Linda stands, reaching into the drawer for something. She pulls out an old key, one that she hasn't used in years. The rusted metal catches the light as she holds it out to Erin. "Here," she says, her voice soft but steady. "It's the key to my trust account mailbox. I never thought you'd need it, but now, I think you should have it. It's yours, if you ever need it." Erin takes the key, her hand shaking just slightly as she holds it. Her eyes meet Linda's and she feels the weight of it. This small, simple gesture that carries the weight of everything they've been through. "I'm sorry it took this much," Erin says, her voice thick with emotion. Linda smiles, her heart swelling with something deep and familiar. "It took what it needed to take," she replies softly. "But you're here now, and that's all that matters." They sit together at the kitchen table, the warmth of the cookies filling the air, and Linda watches as Erin places the key carefully on the table. The world outside might still be cold, but in this moment, inside these four walls, everything feels right. For the first time in a long time, Linda feels like she can breathe. Not just in her own space, but in the space she's created with Erin. The weight of the past is still there, but it's no longer defining them. The future is wide open, and for the first time in years, Linda knows she doesn't have to carry it alone. As they share the warm cookies, their laughter fills the room, and for the first time, it feels like a new beginning. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, the flames dancing with a warmth that feels right, feels earned. Linda stands by the fireplace, a mug of hot cocoa cradled in her hands, the gentle steam rising in delicate spirals. She leans against the mantel, her gaze flickering between the fire and the objects laid before her. The mantel, once cluttered with the trivial ornaments of a life she didn't recognize anymore, is now simple, clean, and purposeful. There, in the soft light, rests a photograph of the cranberry hearth, a gift shop she'd visited years ago, before everything went sideways. The photo captures the small storefront, the windows aglow with warm light, the kind of place she used to dream of visiting with Mark when things weren't so broken. It feels like a piece of the woman she's reclaiming, not the one tethered to others' expectations, but the one who knew how to breathe in the quiet and find joy in the small things. Next to the photo is her trust account file, a symbol of the control she's taken back from the chaos of her family's demands. It's the same file that holds the key to her future, her choices, her peace. And then there's the final wrapped gift, small and unassuming, resting on the corner of the mantel. It's the last piece of this holiday puzzle she's been putting together for herself, and for the first time, she allows herself to be both the giver and the receiver. The tag on the package is simple. To me. Linda places the mug down carefully and picks up the gift, turning it over in her hands, feeling the smoothness of the wrapping paper, the weight of what's inside. Her fingers slide under the paper, tearing it open gently as though savoring each moment of this quiet, sacred act. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, is a small note. She unfolds it slowly, her eyes tracing the words. "You did not deserve the disrespect. You do deserve the peace." The words hit her like a breath, a soft release, and for a moment, Linda closes her eyes, letting them sink in. She had spent so much time trying to make things right for everyone else, giving, hoping, never receiving in return. And now, finally, she's given herself what she deserves. No apologies, no second guesses. Just peace. Linda tucks the note back into the box, the cedar smell of it filling her senses, before placing it alongside her updated will. The box is closed with the softest of clicks, the finality of it settling within her, in the deepest parts of her. It feels right. It feels complete. The doorbell rings, pulling her from the moment. Linda sets the box down, her heart calm, and moves toward the door. She opens it to find June standing there, a broad grin on her face, carrying a small bundle of blankets. "Ready for our holiday movie marathon?" June asks, her voice light, almost teasing, the kind of humor that's always been a comfort to Linda. No drama, no yelling, just the movies. Linda smiles softly, the invitation easy. "I'm ready. I've already wrapped up my last gift." June steps inside, the warmth of her presence filling the space. She kicks off her boots and settles in, while Linda picks up the remote and starts the first movie. It's an old classic, the kind they used to watch together when the world still made sense. They sit side by side, not needing to fill the silence with anything more than the comfort of each other's company. As the movie plays, Linda looks around at the simple serenity of her new life. No more fighting, no more pretending, no more waiting for things to get better. She has what she needs, and what she deserves. Peace, space, and the freedom to breathe. June glances over at her, catching her gaze. "This is what you've been needing all along, isn't it?" Linda nods, her smile soft. "Yes," she says, the words coming easily. "This is mine, my space, my air." The credits roll on the screen, but Linda doesn't reach for the remote. She sits still, soaking in the stillness, the quiet joy of finally having what's been denied her for so long. The world outside may still be cold, but here, inside her new life, everything feels just as it should be. And as the night deepens, Linda smiles, the weight of it all. Everything she's endured, everything she's lost and gained, falling away, leaving nothing but the quiet strength of the woman she's become. At Christmas, my son's wife kicked my bag aside. The next gift box held her eviction letter,